On Monday, I handed in a completed art project on time, as in I met a deadline, and I had not done that before in A-level art. So considering we're like 2/3 of the way through year 12, it was about time I started meeting deadlines. So with my very, long time of experience on meeting deadlines, here's how I met it. First things first, it's pretty self-explanatory. You've got to plan. And I actually did this in, my terms were in like 8-week chunks. So it was originally due at the end of 8 weeks. I think I started planning in week 4. No, it was at the beginning of the term, and I planned it so that I'd finish at the end of week 5. So then I had between week 6 and week 8 to do my final piece for that project. And that was ridiculous, because when I looked at my plan, like in the holidays, I was just like, how on earth did I expect myself to do that much work? So, 2 things about planning. There's the right way and there's the wrong way. So, the wrong way is thinking that you're some sort of human machine that can produce 10 hours of work in a night and consistently do that for 5 weeks straight, which is what I thought I could do when I started planning this whole project out. Yeah, not the case. You can't expect a plan to succeed if you don't factor in the fact that life will get in the way. So I somehow thought that I could do like 3 essays in a week and then 5 observation pieces and whatever else and all these things for this project. Again, I'm talking in art terms, but it can apply to all your other subjects. And I thought that I could just do that, and then something happened, and then something else happened, and then another essay got loaded on for me, and then another one, and then, other things happen in other subjects, in your life in general, in the fact that you don't want to work 24/7, so you needed some downtime, and yeah, things just got in the way. And so I quickly began to realise that this plan was not going to happen when I was in week 3 and I was still doing the stuff from week 1. So surprisingly, I did not meet that deadline for week 8 to finish that project off. So there's the first no-no. The second deadline that they gave us was, okay, we're going to give you the 2 weeks over the holidays and you need to have your whole project done, and that Monday that you come back, you hand it all in. And so I was like, let's try this. We'll try our best. We'll see if we can get it all done, and if there's a couple of things that aren't done, then yeah, that's fine. But deep down I was like, I really want to get this just out of the way with, so that term 4, where we're doing more experimental stuff, we're not really doing that project, I can kind of just chill out. So I knew that it was a challenge, but I wanted to push myself and make sure that I was actually going to, I was on target to reach that. And if suddenly something really big happened, then I would forgive myself for not quite getting it done, but I would get a lot of it done. I would plan to get a lot of it done. So the way I planned this part of the project, and the bit that I actually got in on time for a deadline, was different to how I did it last term. So last term I said, right, okay, week 1 I'll do these 5 things, then week 2 I'll do these 5 things. And it was logical. I thought, right, okay, I'll break my project down into all the tasks I need to do. I'll organise it out into the weeks that I know into chronological order, and then by the end of week 5 I'll have it done. What I didn't take into consideration is the amount of time that it takes. So instead, I wrote down a list of all the stuff I needed to get done, and then how long I would expect it to take. And I really had to think about that, because you tend to underestimate or even overestimate how long it is. So for me, I would always underestimate. I'd say, oh, it takes me 2 hours to finish this drawing, and it takes me like 6, and then I'm like, well, the nose wasn't right or whatever, and I'd make up an excuse and say that it was 2 hours, I was just focusing on that, and that was just an anomaly. But when that happens for every single thing, you kind of have to think and maybe go, yeah, okay, maybe my estimations are wrong. So really have a good old think and write down as close as you can how long it's going to take you. On the other end of the scale, you might overestimate it because you constantly pick up your phone. So say you're writing an essay, you might say it takes you an hour and a half to write this essay, but in reality it takes you an hour, just half an hour of it is on the phone. So try and just remove yourself from your phone, and again I'll talk about that in a minute, but please try and make sure that your timings are as accurate as they can. Obviously they're going to change, but that just means that when you plan them into your week, you're going to be able to achieve them easier, if that makes sense. Because I would then say, okay, so it'll take me 2 hours to finish this piece and 4 hours to finish this. Okay, so 6 hours of artwork in one day. Not on that day. I've got too much stuff on that day, so I'll just split it over 2. And I'd think, okay, but I've got 3 hours here. What can I do there? And then I'd link that. And it just like, I found little areas. So it relies on you having the rest of your week planned out and the rest of your month or whatever, however long your like deadline span is. But if you've got all that done, then it can really help you out. And I am planning on doing more bullet journal style videos in the future to help you stay organised. So please keep an eye out for that. So on to that topic of phones that we were just on. Yeah, they're no good. And sorry to be like, you know, the spoil spot or whatever. But I had to literally forbid myself for going on social media until I got some tasks done. And it was hard. It is tough. But there are apps that you can use, or you can literally hand it to a family member and say, do not let me have this until I finish this particular piece. But I realised that throughout, say, the term that I didn't meet the deadline, I was constantly looking at my phone in between doing other things, so that it kind of drew out the time that it took to finish those things. And then it stresses you out more because you're trying to multitask and you also never get anything done on time. So just removing your phone from the equation can really help you just realise that, again, what I was saying earlier, it doesn't take as long as you think to finish some tasks, but it also means that you have a distraction-free environment, so you're more likely to be productive. So I had the 2 weeks in my holiday to finish this project, and I said to myself, on certain days where I had like a fairly empty day, if I was going out then maybe it'd change, but on a fairly empty day I wouldn't look at social media until 12 o'clock noon. So I had the morning to get as much stuff done as possible because I had no other, like, I had no distraction to kind of take me away from that. So it really helped me, because I always found that I'm more productive in the morning when you've got your to-do list ready and you're just feeling a bit more awake if you've had the right amount of sleep, because sometimes you wake up and you're like, what year is it? But besides the point, sometimes when you're feeling the most productive, and it might be that you feel the most productive in the evening, so you say, okay, from 2 until 7 I'm not going to look at my phone. And again, that's hard. So one of the apps that I use is called Forest. It basically, to put it, and I know there's a couple of apps that do this, but Forest is just the one that I picked out. It's, you plant a tree, and then you can't go off, like, you can go off that app, but you can't like go on a social media or any other app on your phone without killing the tree. And I don't know about you, but I get very attached to a artificial tree on my phone. So it really helped, because I really didn't want to kill my tree. So I had like a little forest at the end of each day of loads of little trees that I'd built, and you obviously set it for a timer, so to say like half an hour, and then you go. Your phone is out of the way, because you might still get notifications, but you can't look at them. So again, it removes it doesn't necessarily remove the temptation, but whenever you go, you're like, oh wait, my tree, I don't want to ruin my tree. Now the next thing, one thing that I completely forgot to do on the last couple of days of my holidays, because obviously there's that end of, you know, week, or like the days before the deadlines, somehow you become some sort of multi-armed machine that just gets stuff done, and I'm like, why can't I do that all the time? But the last day, I completely forgot to take breaks. And I felt it the next morning because I was absolutely exhausted. And actually 6 PM that day, I just had some sort of lull, and I realised because I was literally running on an adrenaline all day. So make sure that when it's not the night before the deadline or whatever, you take some sort of breaks, because it's just, you're never going to get anything done if you have this whole day where you do, you know, a fair amount, and then for the next 3 days you're recovering from that because you're just so exhausted. So having regular breaks and allowing yourself the time to go on your phone or to chat with your family or whatever else, just completely detach yourself from the work. It's just, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? But don't make those breaks turn into long procrastination breaks. We all have them. We're like, okay, 5 minutes, I'll look on Instagram. 2 hours later, you're stalking someone's account. So please try and like limit yourself. Maybe use like the Pomodoro technique, where you work for 25 minutes and then have a 5-minute break, and that means that, you know, you've only got that 5 minutes to have that downtime. But yeah, whatever you want to do, just make sure that you're realizing that your mental health is still a priority in this situation. One thing that I do want to point out is those breaks can't always be procrastination breaks. You know, the ones where you just like scroll on your phone for 5 minutes, because that doesn't relax your brain, that just moves it on to something else. So I would often get up for 5 minutes and just do some stretching, because when you're sat there studying, you go very zoned in on that one thing, and you just need to wake yourself up a bit, realize that you've got limbs and you need to move them and all that kind of stuff. So making sure that you either go for a walk, grab a snack, literally walk downstairs to the fridge. That's exercise, I tell myself every time I go to the fridge. But making sure that you're still keeping your body alive and awake, and not just sitting there for hours and hours, because that's no good for anyone. Going back to the planning aspect that I talked about at the beginning, when I allocated tasks, I made sure that throughout the week it was fairly even. Obviously some days I had more than others, because some days I was out, some days I had a whole day at home. So I tried to get a lot of stuff done, but I did vary it a bit. So I didn't plan it so that I did 5 hours of drawing and then 5 hours of painting. But I made sure that, say if I was doing 2 hours of essay writing, I'd then change to painting or drawing or something else. Or if you've got 2 hours of one subject, then change it to another subject or another aspect of that subject, like another chapter or another topic. Making sure that you're not spending the entire day on one thing, because again, it's about keeping yourself awake. And if you're doing the same thing for the whole day, you're going to find that your workload, or what's the word? I can't think of the phrase, but you know how fast you work, that will start to decrease, and that's obviously not going to help you catch up on your deadlines. If you've got a time that you need to get it all done by, you want to be working as fast as you can and as efficiently as you can, still obviously producing good quality work, but making sure that you're not spending 2 hours on something when you could only spend an hour and still get it done. Also, let's talk about discipline, because that can be annoying. When one day you're just like, oh, I can't be bothered to do that task that I've planned for today, I'll do something else. And then that happens the next day and the next day, and when once again you find yourself procrastinating and panicking the day before a deadline because you've got so much work to do. That's what happened every single time I didn't meet a deadline. I would move tasks because I couldn't be bothered to do them. And in that 2-week holiday, I thought, do you know what? I just need to do it. I don't care if I don't want to. I'm trying to make it as enjoyable as I can. I might stick on a movie if I can, or some nice music, or have a snack afterwards or whatever. But I just had to realise that sometimes you have to have discipline, and sometimes you have to tell yourself that you just need to do it. And one way I think I help myself get around that is by thinking, okay, so how will I feel once it's done? And when you start thinking about that, when you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it becomes a lot easier to do that task, because you want that feeling of satisfaction and just overall calm. You know, you want that feeling. You might not want to do the thing that gets to that, but you realise you have to do that to get to that feeling. So yeah. And that ties into the last tip, which is tackling your hardest tasks first, or the ones that you really don't want to do, because it's common for everyone to just leave them till last, to think, oh well, once I get there I'll be ready for it, when in reality you'll never be ready for it. So just getting them out of the way with first means that towards the end you'll find this process more enjoyable, because you've got the nicer tasks at the end. So although it was harder for me in art because I had to do my project in chronological order, I got my artist essays out of the way with first, which was one thing that you can kind of do at the end and make it look like you've done it at the beginning. But I thought, I'm going to do it at the beginning because A, it helps my project anyway, but B, it's the only part of writing in my project. And I'm not, you know, against writing. I do English lit, I do a lot of writing, but I much prefer to draw than write an artist essay. So I thought I'll get them out of the way with first. I did them in the first couple of days of my holidays, and then that was it. That was all the writing I need to do for that project. And it just feels like you've got that weight lifted off your shoulders. And this is kind of what it feels like now. Because, and on the larger scheme of things, instead of thinking about one task, what will happen, how will you feel when you've done this whole thing, when you've handed in that project or that task on a deadline? Well, now I feel it's really weird. I feel like I should be stressing, and I actually don't have anything to stress about in terms of art. So I still don't know how to handle it, but yeah, it's a great feeling. So if you have that deadline, just think that if you actually get it done, it's great. Take it from me, who's never had this feeling before. So I really hope these tips from a very experienced A-level student on how to meet your deadlines. I've literally done this once and I've decided to film this video, so I hope you can see the irony there. Also, if you've seen me on Instagram, you know that my bio is all about me like not meeting deadlines, so this video is all kinds of irony. But I hope these tips have been useful, and if you enjoyed this video then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!